Today I want to do what's called the open shaded lettering, which is based on more formal calligraphic hands like the engrosser script or a copper plate script or an English round hand. So all these names usually don't mean anything to us because this is a culture that we have not any history or historic connection with. And that is why many times when people are either studying calligraphy in or Latin calligraphy in India, we know very little. It's almost as good as when people in the West are studying yoga and they start talking all this, very metaphysical stuff without really getting it. And you just look at it and say, guys, it's not that complicated, and you're just trying to do this huge, big thing out of it. So I've often found myself being a little kinder to people who are in India trying to practice calligraphy with especially anything that is historic, because we have no samples of that, we have very little contact with it, and honestly speaking, in our regular life, other than the functional writing, we don't really use it or have contact with it at all, no exposure to it at all. So I'm going to give you a little background of the script. That's important to know because you don't want to do something with out of ignorance. You can know something, you know where to access information about it, and then you can choose to do whatever you want to do because that creative license you have. So I often find that as Indians, we don't really dive into too much of background and history, and that is where we fail. So tomorrow, if there's a calligrapher from anywhere else in the world, especially if it's Europe or America, they have a thick knowledge of the script and the history. Even if they're not practicing it, they know about it. So I want to spend a little time in the beginning about that. So in the last class, we studied Gothic script, which was a medieval script. So this was the script that became prevalent from 800 AD to about 1400 AD. So I'm including the entire century here. Somewhere in that vicinity of that century was when the script was prevalent. But in the middle of the 1400s, that's middle of the 15th century, printing was invented by Johann Gutenberg. I think I have shared the link to a documentary by Stephen Fry where he has tried to rebuild the Gutenberg press and shown you how his process might have been and what the motivations might have been. It's really brilliant. But if I ask you to imagine, so Gutenberg first went and printed what's called the Gutenberg Bible. And that is the most famous book because it was the first book that he printed. But if you try to imagine, how do you think that Bible might have looked? So we think of regular Bibles that you might have come across or just regular books. So you think it might be hardbound. There's a certain typeface and everything. So yeah, okay, he printed the first Bible. What big whoop. But when you look at it, you realize that he printed from letters that he was familiar with. And that's when you suddenly realize that Gutenberg did not know fonts. He was the one who created the first type. And when he was making that type, the only font or typeface or lettering that was available was Gothic. So he made a typeface that was an exact replica of the Gothic script. So that entire Gutenberg Bible is a manuscript that is printed using a script that used to be made by hand. So in those 600, 700 years, we have developed printing or printing technology and typefaces and lettering in a completely different manner. So this was the history of the first books that were written. Now, after that, a lot of change happened because the moment you had books available, they also printed books available. They became rather cheap. and they could be in the time that it took to write maybe one book. These guys were able to print maybe like 100 books, and that allowed for books to be spread all over. They were easier and cheaper to buy, cheaper to make. That increased collection of books, and therefore now if you have a book, you better know how to read and write. So reading and writing improved. While 1,000 years ago, maybe 10% of the male population was trained in reading and writing, and that too, probably not even writing, they could just read. The writing was done exclusively by monks in scriptoriums because the use of writing was so little. Who is going to write? Nobody wrote letters to each other. The people who wrote letters were probably the clergy. They were royalty, where they were signing treaties or something like that, but nothing else. So nobody needed to read or write. It was as redundant in that age as farming is redundant today. Like, do you know how to use a farming tool? I don't even know the names of farming tools, but most people at that time were usually farmers. They did not need reading and writing. So as the spread of books increased, reading and writing started becoming easier, and the more it spread in any population, there is more, I guess, assimilation of whatever you read or write, and also variation depending upon where the letters are adopted. So if you're in Germany, but you are adopting something from Italy, your sounds are different, the words you use are different. So they started adding a few letters so that they could accommodate the script to their language. So all over Europe, they still use the Latin script. So the script can be the same, but the language can be different. So how do you know what is a script or a language? Devanagari is a script. Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, all these are languages. So we can use the script to write any of these languages. Theoretically speaking, I can use the Devanagari that I write for Marathi, but I can write Gujarati words also in it. So anybody who can read the script can read that language. Similarly, all of us can read the Latin script. So you may not understand Italian, but you can definitely read the words. So that is the difference. So like this, the letters started spreading all over, and as people were reading and writing and also learning to write a lot more, the script started modifying. When the scripts modified, the purpose of the script also was important. So as people started using the script to maybe make notes or keep record, they started using a different kind of script. So taking you a little bit into the history of cursive writing. When we think of cursive writing, we are exposed to the joint letters that we see in English, something that we were taught at least till about 20 years ago, 30 years ago in schools. But cursive is a generic term used for any kind of script that is written for a more practical purpose. So about 3,000 years ago, the formal script, say in Egypt, was hieroglyphs, but that also had a cursive hand, and that script was called demotic. So everyday communication between the shopkeepers in Cairo did not have to be those little symbols. They wrote in a much more quicker hand. Now that did not mean that the letters were joined. It was just a quicker way of writing those letters. Similarly, we have a Greek alphabet which had very formal letters. That became cursive as well. And we had the Roman alphabet, which was all capitals that you have seen in maybe old Roman monuments. And they had a cursive script also, which is called the New Roman Cursive. So between when these scripts were formally used and when they became cursive, there is a span of hundreds of years. So when 3000 BC, the script was used in, I guess, just the pyramids. By the time that script started being used as a demotic script, it was 650 BC. So almost 2500 years went before the script could be changed and used for more colloquial purposes or more practical reasons. So that's the understanding of the word cursive. Now, coming back to the Latin script, the Latin script went through its own evolution. So you had Gothic after Gothic, and Gothic had a lot of scripts. After Gothic, when people started writing more practical stuff, they moved to a kind of script that was called round hand. That's the English round hand. The tools that were used to write that Gothic script and the round hand was pretty much the same, but the round hand was suddenly now leaning a little bit to the right, and the letters were built in a certain way that they could connect. Even the idea of writing a capital letter and a small letter, the majuscules and the minuscules, came in about 800 BC when they realized that writing everything in capital was difficult to read, so they made capital and small letters in what is called the Carolingian minuscule script. You don't have to remember all of this, but I'm just a little too extra passionate. I could speak for 5 hours about this, but I just want you to know. You don't memorize all these names at all, but you should know that this is how things have evolved. The reason you should know it, because now as we come into this cursive script of the mid 1800s, it became significant that the English round hand, which was written with a quill, I'm going to show you a sample of that, was a little tedious. It was written with a wider tip. So if you cut the quill to a thinner size, you could write much better and much faster, and also the line became a little slimmer, but you still gave it a thick and thin dynamic nature. Then what happened was, with the quill, every time making the quill is quite a laborious process. I'm just going to show this to you. Okay, so these are my experiments in amateur quill cutting. Now this is a peacock feather. This is from the under side of the wings. You hardly ever see this, but it had a nice thick chamber flue, so I thought I could use this. And it's cut at an cut like a broad edge pen. This is how it is cut. So if I were to cut that a little thinner, then I would get something like this. And I'll write and show you with this how this works. But it's such a pain to cut these, and you have to be really good at it, and this gets used up really fast. Within a day or something, I would have to cut it again and again. And how many geese can I find to get feathers from? So they designed a metal nib to do the same job. And this metal nib can flex like this. So we are able to make thick and thin lines. So this allowed people to write a little more, and then the script changed because of the tool as well. Eventually, dipping the ink became an issue, so we moved on to something like this, which is a fountain pen. But then the script remained similar to what was written with all these pens. So let me demonstrate how the script looks, and all this will finally connect, I promise you, to the open shaded lettering. It is not in vain that you will spend these 15 minutes. So the round hand was written somewhat like this. My nib is split in the middle, so it is going to act a little funny. So you could probably write something like this. And you'll notice how some strokes are thick and some strokes are thin. So beginners often have a problem about this. Why are some strokes thin and which strokes are thick and which strokes are thin? So if you write with these tools, all you have to do is follow the ductus and you will be able to write something exactly like that. You don't have to really do too much work. That's just part of the design. Now, if I were to try writing uh, with the sharp pointed pen, I can still create a very nice thick and thin structure because now my hand is practiced at writing with the quill that is cut flat. But I need not write it straight. And by the way, the round hand could also be written at an angle. This is what I meant when I said right in the first class, in the Roman class, that you can absolutely pick up anything and write with it. Don't wait for the tool to come by. Then if we use the steel nib, we have many more options available, and this lasts and lasts. But still the beauty of the letter comes from the thick and thin letters. Even without any flourishing, you are able to make beautiful letters. And mind you, this is the age when everywhere you went or they went, these were the letters that were there. They did not have print at all. But when we came to the fountain pen, this pen does not have the ability to split like this. So the fountain pen had to make do using a simplified version of the earlier scripts. So this script was called monoline scripts, or any script which is written with just a single thickness of line is a monoline script. It could be anything. The name of the script could be anything. It is written in monoline. And then as we go further into the use of fountain pens, we realize that we don't really need to write cursive anymore. In the past, cursive was written because they figured that when you were writing with a pointed pen, this quill would wear out less if you didn't lift the pen so much. If you kept lifting, dipping it in ink and writing again, it would wear out faster. That is where the idea of cursive began. And then it came here and here, and now we write mostly for functional reason. The communication is more important than how well you write it. And the tools that we have right now are designed just for that. So long as you can quickly note down, your job is done. If you can write 3,000 words in 1 hour, however you write them, it's not important. The words are important. So your pens and your script tended to cater to the purpose for what you were writing. Alright, so now that you've seen how these letters have come about, I want to show you what this open shaded lettering is. So open shaded lettering is a cheat to write the thick and thin letters without really knowing formal calligraphy. So formal calligraphy scripts are scripts like you might know copperplate script. So copperplate, again, are people in India, if somebody is teaching you copperplate, they know very little about the script, because copper plate is an umbrella term for scripts that could be written in such a way that when those letters were engraved on a copper plate and then you burnish it with ink and then you print it, you don't miss certain spots. So this printing was done maybe on illustrations or something like that, where you could not print with those movable type. So copper plate is not, you don't write with a copper plate, you don't write on a copper plate. This is used for printing. But in copper plate script, you would have something like an engrosser script, Spencerian script. And then these scripts became more, I guess, popular for regular cursive writing as the Palmer method, or you have Marion Richardson. So all these were mostly for writing on paper and not for big documents. All right, so I'm going to show you how this script works, and then I'm going to give you an alphabet of the script. So first part, just watch this, because if you're not watching, then you will miss out, and then when you're making the alphabets, you won't realize what is happening. Okay, so I'm just writing the word Wednesday over here. To start off, it's always good to give yourself some baseline. You can make it by hand, or if you want to, you can make it with a scale. So always keep a 6-inch scale in your bag. You never know when a writing emergency might occur. And if you are used to writing upright, we can create those letters upright as well, because at an angle, then you have to maintain a consistent angle. So I'm just going to show you writing it upright. I might as well write in pen directly. So Wednesday. An open shaded lettering uses up the same strokes that we would in any formal calligraphy script, but we write in monoline. So I'm not using it like a brush script. I will connect the letters, and there is a particular method and a set of strokes with which you connect these letters. That's what I'm going to show you. So far, this looks just like any other cursive hand. But if you want to make it more decorative, and you want to make it slightly bigger also, you can add a thickness to these letters, and those thicknesses are added at different places. You don't need to again memorize and note this. I am going to show you that. So I will just artificially add a line in a few places like this to create the illusion that this script has been written with a flexible pen. Now the illusion is just so that I can get a thick and thin line going. Of course, you know that I've not written it with that pen, but I'm bringing the beauty of a formal script into this. Then you can, of course, color this, make all sorts of effects on this. And the advantage of making a script like this is because even though you know just a few basics of cursive, you can create very decorative scripts for things like your journals or labels, or the envelope exchange if any of you are taking part in that, without really waiting for calligraphy to kick in. Okay, so this is what I want to show you, and this is open shaded lettering. So why is it called open shaded? The letters that I showed you earlier, in these letters, there are two kinds of lines that are used to make the shape or the letters. I'm going to use another very impressive looking tool, which is the oblique holder. So we make these letters using a combination of strokes. You have the shaded part, which is this. So this is the shaded part of the stroke, and then you have a hairline. So the combination of the hairline and the shade or the shaded stroke is what gives us this beautiful lettering. But this shade is covered or completed. But the moment you imitate the same thickness, this becomes open shaded. That's it. Okay, any questions so far? Alright, now I'm going to stop my burbad and I'm going to show you the letters. So to start with, whenever you're writing letters, if you have a large span of paper, limit your lettering to no more than about 4 to 6 inches only. So since you guys have not written the word Wednesday, I will ask you to draw lines in 2 columns. Don't start making the lines. I will show you how to make them. So you will make a line. I'm going to make them about 4 inches so that I can fit all the alphabets in this page, but you can make them maybe about this much. Our paper is about 11 inches. So you can make them 5 inches and leave a gutter space in between. So here we go. Try to make these straight. If you want, you can measure from the side and make them also. So in the beginning, I'm going to ask you to make a set of lines which are about an inch away from the top. And I'll make the lines in pen so they're visible to all of you. And the space between the letters can be about the size of your thumb. So that's maybe a centimeter and a half or 1.25 centimeter, just a little more than a centimeter. So you're able to see what is happening there. So this is our baseline, the line at the bottom. The line on the top is our X line. So the baseline will be the line on which our letters are going to perch, and the height of the letters will be the space between the baseline and the X line. For an open shaded letter, you don't need to measure this height. For that matter, for any of these copper plate like scripts, you can decide on what height you want these minuscule letters to be. The proportion is, I guess, measured between the minuscule letter and the height of the ascender, descender, and the capital. So the ascenders are usually 3 times the X height, but we don't want to do that. We're going to keep it about the same or a little less than our X height. X height again is the distance between the baseline and the X line. And the descender will have the same space. Alright, so let's start with some basic shapes. I'm going to give you the shapes over here. So our letters are going to be upright, but they are going to be joined to the next upright letter and then joined to the next upright letter. So we are going to make a combination of entry or exit strokes, so the connecting strokes and the letter strokes. So the connecting strokes will be slightly shallow, a shallow angle, and they will round up and connect to the letter strokes. Like in this case, I'm making the letter I, and there will be an exit stroke which will then connect to the next letter. And on this I, we will make a certain thickness which will be flat from the top, and you will draw a line that comes straight down. Straight down, don't turn it, because the bottom part of every curved stroke needs to be a hairline. So this is going to look like this, and we will make a dot on top. Now if we do this twice, we will get the letter U. So it's the same thing. You have an entry strokes that's slightly shallow. Now this time I've started it shallow but gone up higher, more upright. And I repeat this, so see that this exit stroke looks like it is parallel to my entry stroke. So the difference between the stroke that comes down and turns to the bottom, the stroke that goes out, is that slight shallowness to the angle. It doesn't come down and go right back up. That is how copper plate does it, but I would prefer not to do it that way. And then do the same thing for the U. And then literally a double U will be a U and a U together. But you don't bring the third stroke down, you just take it all the way up. You turn around and make what's called a blind loop and extend the stroke outside. Now what you need to notice is that all these letters will be written on a particular oval shape. So this is an implied oval in the script, and all the letters will be accommodating this oval shape. So when we practice calligraphy, we are paying attention to these invisible oval shapes. The same oval shape is going to tilt to the right when we write it in slanted handwriting. Why this is important is because your strokes need to look even. Now between the U and W there is a little bit of spacing or space difference, because the W otherwise becomes too wide. But for the next letter, which will be the N, this is how I'm going to make it. I'm going to make my entry stroke run through one oval, come down. And this time I'm making the thickness on the left hand side. And then my stroke for the N is going to be an arch that goes all the way down around the oval. Oh, this should have been slightly straighter, but I'll straighten it out. And then a straight line down for the N. just like the W, we can make the M like this. So I'm not going to get into too many technicalities right now because there are a lot of technicalities. But the few things you need to keep in mind are this. You have to have a clear baseline. The letters must be consistent throughout whatever you are writing. I don't know why my pen is not writing though. Okay, got it started. So the letters have to be consistent throughout in size, space distribution. So the space within the letters, uh, between the letters must always be the same. So if I see this space, this should be equal to this space, this should be equal to this space. So uniformity is what makes it look good. And there has to be some, I guess, you need to stick to a particular shape. So making some letters very round and some letters very oval, that should not happen either. Now using these, except the W, if we were to write a word, this is the first word that you will write in calligraphy after you see the first few shapes. And you can try writing it. I've made the X height a little smaller. So just move the camera like this. So go in shallow, come back straight down. Now don't make it a very tiny line up. Give it enough space, almost like an entire oval shape. An entire oval shape. These letters are very lavish. You cannot crunch them. Their entry and exit strokes are like walking on the red carpet. People have to stand 5 feet away from the celebrities while they walk on the red carpet. And this can then get its thickness. So the M's and the N's will get thickness on the left. I will get it on the right. And this is, the rule is not that the shapes get their thickness only in this way. Sometimes if you make a very small arch for the M in one of the arches is small and the other is too big, you can make the thickness on the other side as well. Okay, do you want to try writing it? Okay, Siley, I see you're holding your chin. Hold the paper. Because otherwise your writing will become a little cumbersome.
Use a pencil to write, no? Right now?
I would suggest just write with a pen. Just go ahead. It looks different in pen. In pencil, it looks too casual. You will find fault in that. But write in pen. Slightly hold the paper. For the calligraphy class, actually, if you're in person over here, I'm constantly will be telling you, Vahi dhara, Vahi dhara. Even for the art, it makes a big difference to the strength of your line. But in calligraphy, it also balances the body. Before you realize it, your shoulders start becoming so stiff. And whenever these scripts are taught, the first lesson is about posture. Let me just show you. I think I'm joking. This is a photocopy of a book that was printed in 1913, and it's about writing. Look at how extensively they have given instructions about from every angle how you should be writing, how you should be sitting, both feet planted on the ground. Elbows have to have room to move about. This is how you hold the pen. This is how you hold the paper. So you should be writing where the angle is somewhat like this. So if you do join the calligraphy batch on Fridays, we start off with this. Okay, are you able to do this? Then I can now quickly show you the rest of the alphabets. Any questions so far? Any clarification needed? All right. Now let's just make two columns of baseline, X line, ascender and descender line, and I will start giving you the entire alphabet. I'm making these lines at 1 centimeter apart. To save space, the descender line can be the ascender line of the next line. I'll show you that. So just make a whole series of lines same distance apart, don't leave any gaps in between, and I will assign a particular uh, name to the lines that you've drawn. Make life a lot easier.
Aditi, in this Meghan Markle show ना,
Uh-huh.
ती एक विचित्र काहीतरी स्क्रिप्ट लिहिते.
Oh, yeah?
She writes cursive,
Okay.
and for every letter she is making flourishes on the left hand side.
Oh,
So
okay.
is it the similar script that we are learning का वेगळं काही आहे?
No, so that is only capitals.
हा, only capitals.
So that
And
could,
some like cursive असतं थोडं थोडं.
so that could be Spencerian. Yes, Spencerian is very heavily ornamental. I'll show you.
Okay.
Why is she writing? But that's so
So
interesting.
ती काय करते, ती विकत आणलेल्या गोष्टी अशा साध्या पिशवीत भरते.
Ah.
And she ties a tag and she writes काय popcorn असं.
Oh, okay.
It's a majorly criticized show. Don't even watch it.
I hadn't. I wasn't going to. In
Yeah,
fact,
never.
I didn't watch her interview also.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, हे आता काय नवीन
मूर्ख बाई आहे ती.
करमणूक. बापरे.
The kind of memes that are floating on her are hilarious. Like, you have nothing to do, you can just watch it.
Oh God. All right. Okay, shall we begin? Everyone's lines are done. Just give me a thumbs up or something so I know. Okay, okay. All right. So let's start from the beginning. So this is the A. Now the third line from top, we will make a base line. So you can put a dot at the start of the line. This is the practice that you will find even if you buy sheets on cursive writing or any lettering. They usually start the baseline with a small dot. Right, so our letter A is going to be an oval. Now you know what to expect. And we are not going to make it like cursive. We are going to make the entire oval and then drop a line next to it like so. So that we get these very distinct negative triangular shapes. These are like the inverse arches of old Gothic buildings, like they hold the letters in place and give us some relief so that we can enjoy the letter form. So don't make these too tight and try to not overlap the letters. So this is A. You can join the next letter to this if you want to, but I'm going to separate it and show you the B. So all my entry strokes are the same angle. It will go up to the X line. And then I will drop a line down and go around that invisible oval shape like this. Make a tiny U-turn and come out. Make this exit stroke. So notice that I started the stroke a little lower than the ascender line because I'm going to turn this around. Now this seems to be a very tedious way to write a B. So eventually you will write a B like this. It will go up. You will change the angle and make your loop like this. Come straight down. That's what you're going to do. But you notice how the entry stroke and the line of the loop are not straight like this. They don't have to be. This is how we would do if we're doing cursive writing. But here we are writing with, we need this for a decorative purpose. So we are going to make these more like patterns. Alright, so thickness. For the A, we make a vertical line on the right side of the oval and then a vertical line about the same thickness on the right side of this, what is called the downstroke. So they should look like they match. Same thickness on the B, but comes all the way from the top and comes straight down. Do not turn it into the curve. I'll show you what happens when you turn it into the curve, but don't do it here. The C is pretty similar. Siley, hold the book. The C is pretty similar. You go around that oval again and extend the line outwards. So your exit stroke must always seem like it's ready to join the next stroke. And make a nice twirl at the start of the C. This is to balance the C out. If you don't make that what's called the ball terminal, your letter looks rather weak. Okay, D is again very much like A. You make an oval, the same oval like you did for A, and just extend the downstroke into what is called a short stem, but don't go all the way to the ascender line. So, based on classic calligraphy, our the true ascenders are only going to be L, B, H, and K, and D and T are only going to come about halfway or just above halfway. Okay, now since we do not have descenders here, we are going to make our next letters just one line below. So our baselines on the left side and right side are not going to match, but don't worry about that. I'm just trying to save space and get all the letters in one page. Now for the E, normally in cursive, an E is made like that. But this E again is rather weak. So for open shaded letters, you will make an E like the C and then turn this loop inward and make it pretty horizontal. This way it can stand on its own. Otherwise it just looks like a very weak loop. The F is the longest letter because it has an ascender as well as descender. So this is what we're going to do. Long loops can be difficult to make. So instead of going into the loop first make the vertical line. So you have reduced the space and don't go all the way down to the descender line also. Then you can make the loop. Now all loops must end above the X line. Always. Don't bring them too down because they look like somebody who is wearing a shirt but decided not to tuck it in. Doesn't look nice. Make a small ball on the left side. This almost looks like a little nose ring on the left. And from the right of that ball, get an exit stroke out. And like the B, your shade will come on the right side of this upright stem. So if you haven't made the connection, you'll notice that most of these thicknesses are applied to strokes which are coming downwards. Any stroke that goes up does not have this thickness, and simply because in these letters which were written with tools with certain limitations, I could not press to make a thick stroke going upward, but I could press to make all the strokes coming down. And that is why even in this an artificially shaded lettering style, we follow the same rules.
I had a question. Ball terminal of the F faces downwards or upwards?
Sorry, which one?
For the F, the ball terminal.
It's just there on the side. It doesn't face anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Okay, for the G, now we are going to make the turn on the other side. So we have to accommodate a thickness. You don't want the thickness to come on the right. So I'm going to give a little gap and end this loop also at the baseline and then extend it outward. So the gap between the oval and this downstroke, the descender loop, is going to be filled with a line that is going to be our shade. That's only for the down loop, but for the oval, the shade still remains on the right side. For the
Aditi,
H,
G चा तो जो खाली येणारा आहे,
huh?
that is also straight, right?
Yes, it's straight.
Oh.
Don't turn it, yeah. For H now, I'm going to make the loop first. And first make the thickness, because you don't want the thickness to come into the arch, and the arch will come from somewhere in the middle of this stroke, turn outward. So the difference between strokes or letters which look elegant is just literally these negative spaces. This negative space over here, this negative space, this space, all of them contribute to the beauty of the letters. So if I were to make an H or even indeed a G that was like this, and then I add thickness over here, see what happens. We encroach into the space of the oval, and this starts becoming very tacky. Then this is not going to look good at all. So we want to stay away from strokes entering into the space that is allocated to another shape. All right, now I, J, K. Let's make some room for K. So make the next baseline 2 lines below, 3 lines below. Leave 2 lines after G. So the descender of G will become the ascender of the next set of letters. Because I think the J will also come here, which is a descender. K will come with an ascender, and L will also have an ascender. I is fairly simple. J follows the same rule as G, so you will have the ascender, not ascender, entry stroke, but leave a gap and then make the descender loop and put your thickness on the left hand side. K, ascender loop, thickness, and for the K, the shape that we make will be like a petal shape, like this, and then a tiny arch like that. And here we can put the thickness on the inside or the outside. I can see that if I put the thickness inside, there'll be very little space in the arch, so I'm adding this thickness outside for balance. And I can see that here, after adding the thickness, there is nice alignment between the shape on top and the shape at the bottom. L should be fairly simple. And I am going to attempt an M, though it's this is something that you must avoid. If you don't have space to create a nice lavish letter, do not cram it in. I'm still not getting a consistent arch in my M, but it's okay. This is very casual. N O P Q R. So these we can all make after one line. No ascenders in the next set of letters. O, which is just an oval shape, but O has again a weird exit stroke. So don't make the O like a big loop on top. Even that has a very tiny blind loop like the B, and an exit stroke like the W. Is everyone with me so far? It isn't very complicated. So I'm trying to pace it such that we finish the letters and we can write a few words after this. But if you need me to wait, if you haven't got clarity on any of the letters, do let me know. I can start. Okay, P is again written slightly differently. So you make a stroke that goes above and below. So this is like the F. The thickness will be on the right hand side. So this is almost like just drawing two parallel lines. And then you will make an arch like an N. And this arch I'm turning at the bottom to join the exit stroke like that. So if I have made that arch, which is by the way called a compound curve, the front and the back of the compound curve should be the same width, so that if I turn this around, they should look identical. Oh, they are not looking identical. But now when I make the thickness on one side, we are just drawing a straight line, correct? So what happens to this line when it comes down? It can't be flat, but it can't come so close to the turn as well. So just a little ahead of the turn, I start joining this to what might look like a natural turn of this exit stroke if I were just making this U shape around and over. Get it? That's how we are making those thicknesses on P, the last stroke of M and N. Alright, Q. Q is easy, oval shape. And this time we will touch the oval, turn the descender loop in the other direction, leave a little gap and then exit. Okay, more than halfway through. Okay, now R and S can be a little funny. I can show you two. No, I'm just going to show you one single version of R. Baseline matches. So the R is like an entry stroke but goes all the way up to the X line, goes higher and then makes a blind loop and comes back here. So this loop is about the same thickness as the B and the O. And then you go horizontal and you will make a curve that looks like your C or O, to which you will add thickness on the right hand side. So it looks like you're adding thickness on the outside of the letter, but it works really beautifully. Similarly for the S, you go up, it's almost the identical stroke. And this time, don't make a very big fat pudgy S, but visualize the other side of the oval. Make a small ball terminal on the left and same exit stroke. And this time, if you guessed it, the thickness is on the left side. Okay, now T should come very easily to you guys. And we have already done U and W. V I'm going to show you. So if you want to go ahead and make your U, please go ahead. So the crossbar of the T and the dots on the I and J are about in the same region. U, V, W, X, and then I'll make Y, Z here. V is written with the compound curve first, and very often that is also called the V stroke. Always with the compound curve, then you make the blind loop and an exit stroke. And W is written like a U, so the entry stroke does not come from above, it comes from below. It doesn't come from above, it comes from below. So for the V again, same thickness like we did all the arches. W will have the same thickness like we did in the U. Okay, now for X, this compound curve you have to master because X can throw you for a loop. So this is the first stroke you make of the X, and now I want to just show you, by some accident my stroke is unequal and there seems to be more space on the right. So I have the liberty to balance out my stroke like this. This is unusual. We have been adding thickness to the left, but you can add it to the right. As long as your letters look balanced, you can do whatever you want. This is a very casual lettering style. Now in the space between the bend and the exit, or the bend and the entry, you will draw one hairline like this. That is your X. It's a very cute little thing, and it saves you from drawing two curves matching each other. They can be a little painful. And okay, I'm going to, I'll write Y over there. So Y can be written like this with an entry stroke that comes from above, because that's how cursive is done. But you can also write it like the U and leave a gap. You know why? Because we have the same descender loop like the G, which is turning left. But if you make the loop touching the exit stroke on the U, then make the thickness on the outside, just like how we manipulated the X over here. That's perfectly okay. And now the last letter is Z. So you come up and go around that imagined O, make a blind loop. And this time I'm going to bring the descender line slightly lower because it just looks so odd to make a Z that looks like the number 3. So all these ascenders and descenders are very short. They can go taller if you like them taller. Definitely not shorter. So I am going to be making an exemplar of the capital letters as well. But I did this in a kids class where I have the exemplar without the thicknesses. I'm going to share that with you any case because I've done it. So if you want to have fun with the letters a little bit, you can go ahead and try writing it with those thicknesses. Okay, is everyone done with this? Let's try writing some names or some words. Okay, so now let's say you have to write an envelope to somebody. Everyone is doing some kind of envelope exchange. Is everyone aware of this envelope exchange group? On this group, I realize that some people don't even know it's happening. Okay, so suppose you have an envelope and you want to write someone's name. Let's write Ashwita's name. First things first, make your baseline, X line. And I just want to show you the potential of these letters. What we've done is just the basic. You can do a lot more with this. And without even using capital letters. So now I'm leaving a few gaps between these letters. Wherever I lift my pen. And also I'm paying heed to the fact that I'm going to have to add thicknesses. And all of these can have some flourishes. At some point, I am going to teach you making flourishes as well. But you don't have to do that right now. Instantly, this starts looking so much nicer and just more fun. To this now, of course, you can use pencil colors and shade a little bit. And if you feel like it, you can add shadow. So just on the left and maybe the bottom of some of the strokes, you can add a line. Imagine sending out letters like this. And this is so close to a regular running hand, but yet it's elevated. Now, if we were to write this on an angle, and I want to just demonstrate how this looks if we were to make it leaning. So maybe I can write Siley's name. So I want to lean the letters. Now, this is going to be at an angle, and I want to just show you that when you're writing at an angle, mark some guidelines so you can see the angle well. I'll just give myself more room here. So the principle for changing the angle of the letters is tilting the oval shape. So for that, everything starts moving a little to the side. Our oval shape on the horizontal line becomes like this. Now suppose I do not want to add a pen line over here. Even with this, it looks so pretty. See? Now, if there is a question about why do we not put any thickness on the bottom, I just want to address that one thing. Who's next? Jainita. Suppose we try to do that. How does it look? It's not as if that is wrong because we are, after all, writing very casual letters. So why should we not add thickness there? Whatever you do though, whatever variations you make, you should try to keep them consistent though. So let's see, we have a much wider loop for Jainita's many descenders. And suppose we want to put that thickness coming all the way down. So I will make it thick like this, but I'll also pull it down. Then I should make it over here as well. So if you play around with your letters like this, there's no reason why you cannot have fun. Yeah, maybe over here also you can have. Why not? The logic needs to be sound. And for that matter, this is exactly how an artist, a calligrapher named Louis Madaras invented a script which is called the Madaras script, which was the basis of the Coca-Cola logo. It is rumored that he was the one who designed it but was never credited with it. So many logos in the past were handwritten, like the Ford Motors logo was also credited to him. See, there's nothing wrong with it. As long as there is consistency and some kind of rule.
Does not have to do with the light. I always thought it had to do with the light falling from one side and therefore the thickness on. But that doesn't.
Not this script, yes. This is not for light falling because this is based on the flexing of the nib. So the light falling thing is a different script that we're going to do next week. I'm going to show you some effects and scripts, do a more contemporary lettering exercise. Okay, now I feel really bad for Amulya and Harshini, so I'm going to write their names also. Why not? And I might as well do some flourishing. So how about let's write Amulya's name on a curve. But you must remember that for lettering like that, leave lots of space around. Huh? Don't be stingy with space. So this is something that I have done, I think, even through school. First day of school, I was writing everyone's names on their books. And later on, the flourishing that we will do will be of this nature. This will have to be like a 2-3 part class. And Harshini. Okay, I'm going to show you one capital letter since that's something that you'll see and probably do later on your own. So the strokes can be very fluid. Don't make them too static. There has to be some energy in the strokes. Then they look nice. Leave a few gaps here and there. That looks like highlights. You can make longer lines for the horizontal stops, terminuses on these lines. That looks so much nicer. All right.
Because many a times in Instagram, you see they are writing all this calligraphy